Hello, everybody. It is I, Senfung Lim, and I'm here today with our good friend Reina Medina from 1 Minute Board Games. And let's do a little intro. Let's get this all set up for you so you know what's going on. So Reina is obviously best known as 1 Minute Board Games, and that is a TikTok channel that's dedicated to board game content that's done in 1 minute. So it's very concise and very short. Since July 2020. Reina has amassed a following of well over 300,000 board gamers in her TikTok community, which is great. And she became fascinated with the board game industry and the whole, like, hey, let's become a part of this. And she's now the marketing manager at Pandasaurus Game, which is wonderful. So whether she's creating content, working on marketing strategies, Reina is passionate about diversifying the tabletop space and opening communication amongst all the content creators. So today, she is here to provide us with some insight into how you as a content creator can market your skills to publishers, because you're very valuable to publishers. And she wants to teach you how to professionally and succinctly convey your skills and what you can provide to publishers so they may hire you. Excellent. Well, welcome, Reina. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. So I'm gonna move out of your way. I'm gonna let you take over. I'm just gonna make sure that we're on the comments here. And to the viewers who are watching live, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming. Thanks for being a part of the Tabletop Mentorship Program. We're going to hold all questions until Rain is done speaking, which is probably about 45 minutes or so. So you can write your questions into the chat, and I'll pull them up later once Rain has done her spiel. Okay? Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All right, take it away.
All right. So let me go ahead and do the thing where I share my screen. I just saw this TikTok about, I'm just going off a tangent here, of just like every spiel that every person goes through when they're working from home when they're trying to share a presentation. And they're just like, okay, now I'm going to share my screen. And can everyone see my screen? Anyway, let's see here. All right, let me see if I can share something that doesn't show all of my bookmarks. Not that there's any private information there, but it's a little bit personal. One moment, please. Mhm. Oh my goodness, will I be able to? How's everyone doing today? Thanks, y'all, for tuning in. Chrome tab. Okay, sorry. Give me one moment. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do the thing. Okay, so I am so excited to be here to talk about something that I am actually very passionate about, and that is the relationship between the content creator and the publisher. And I have always been, really of the opinion that content creators are extremely important to publishers. And I think that we forget that a lot. So I am here to remind you of that today and to talk about how you can try to convey that to publishers in a, brief, succinct, strong way. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is you, because you are the most important part of this equation. And I think when I started to learn how to talk about myself and my content, I really had to ask myself a lot of questions. Not really uncomfortable questions, but I think things that you don't really think about. And once you look at these questions and answer them for yourself, it'll help you talk about yourself and your content more. So the first one might seem a little cliche, but why are you a content creator? Is it because it's fun and you like it? Do you enjoy the creative process? Do you want to monetize your hobby? Do you want to provide more representation in the tabletop space? I'm missing a lot more reasons that people do this, but every reason that I've listed here, and most reasons that I haven't listed, are absolutely valid. Discovering your why is super important because it's going to help you figure out how much effort and work you want to invest in your content creation, as well as help you set some healthy boundaries with yourself. Because, if you love content creation because it's fun and you're enjoying yourself, if you overextend yourself, it just won't become as fun anymore and you'll likely burn out and stop, which is something that I actually had to deal with recently. The next question I would like you to ask yourself is, what is your goal? Would you like to monetize your content if you haven't started yet? Do you want to seek growth, whether that's growth in your follower account or growth in the number of publishers you work with? Or do you want to, inform or entertain people? Another great goal is also just staying consistent and doing what you're doing for, as long as you want to do it. So identify what your goal is. Now, my last question that I want to ask is, what are you proud of when it comes to you and your content? And I started to ask myself this question instead of the question, what can you offer? Because, like, I don't know about y'all, but I deal with a lot of imposter syndrome. And sometimes it's hard for me to tell someone what I can offer them when in my head I'm like talking down to myself. But then when I switch my perspective to thinking about what I'm most proud of, then it changed the entire voice and the way that I was able to talk about myself and my content. So, for example, like if you ask me what I can offer, I might say something like, oh, I create concise board game content for over 300,000 followers on TikTok. I have a high engagement rate. I have an Amazon storefront people regularly purchase from. So, for sponsored content, I will create a video on your game and post it to my TikTok and other social accounts. But, if you flip it and you ask me what I'm proud of, I would say something more along the lines of, I'm so proud that in just 2 years, I fostered a community of over 300,000 board gamers, 75% of which identify as female. They comment on my videos and ask me for my opinions on games, which means that I developed a trusting relationship with them. So there is a huge difference between these two statements. The first is definitely more objective and I would say a bit more detached, but then the second one is definitely more personal and more accurately shows the value that I bring to the community with my content. All right, so now it's time to think about what services you want to offer. And the advice that I have here is to be concise, both in the amount of services that you offer and the way that you talk about the service itself. I talk about this because I used to offer like a few different services, or not a few, I used to offer like several different options, like option A, option B, option C, where in reality, most people were contacting me for either option A or B. So once I was able to cut the rest of the other options out, then it kind of helped with the like decision fatigue on their end as a publisher reading my media sheet, which I'll get into the media sheet later. Um, okay, so let's see here. These are examples of different services that I have offered before and that I've seen other people offer. So you want to be clear with what you will receive and then what you will then put out. For example, a review posted to Instagram in exchange for a copy of the game. You also have an overview posted to YouTube for $300. Or another example is a 2-hour playthrough streamed on Twitch with promos posted on social platforms for $400. So, as a publisher, it is extremely useful to know what you are going to be literally getting for whatever you're investing in the creator. Okay, so now that we have a few of your basics down, which will come out a bit more in the presentation, let's talk about your media sheet. Okay, so a media sheet is sort of like an informal resume. It's a one sheet that you can give to someone that tells them all about who you are, what you do, and what services you offer. Now, while this isn't necessary to pitch yourself to publishers, it definitely helps a lot. Personally, from when I've been doing my work at Pandasaurus, when I get inquiries from content creators, I definitely pay more attention if they have a media sheet, just because it's a great way for me to see what information that creator thinks is most important. And it's also honestly just easier on the eyes than like the generic 12-point Arial or Times New Roman font in my Outlook inbox. All right, so this photo that I have on screen is my old media sheet. It is relatively old. I think it's like from the beginning of this year. I have since transitioned to just using one sheet with my rates and cleaning some general stuff up. but I'm just going to use this to show you an example and highlight what information you want to use on your media sheet. Okay, so first and foremost, what you want on your media sheet is your name and your channel name. It's important to include both because some people might have heard of either or, but not have connected the two together. Whenever I meet people, I always introduce myself as Raina, but then once I name drop the 1 Minute Board Games, they're like, oh, yeah, I watched your stuff before. Next, you want to include a short bio. So about, 2 to 3 sentences on how your channel got started, where you are now, and kind of like a mission statement. A mission statement is just like a fancy term for your goal as a content creator. For example, I wrote here, the main goal of my content is to help get more board games into the mass market. Then I transition into how I want to accomplish that goal. Therefore, I focus on content that is short and easily digestible so that anyone from veteran gamers to newcomers can feel welcome. Now, if I were to go back and edit my media kit, I think I would condense this a bit more, but I think this is a good starting point. Okay, so now it is numbers time. This is where you're going to list your following and other stats for all of your socials. Now, when I said earlier that reading media sheets is easier on the eyes, it definitely is mostly in reference to this. Once someone starts listing like, oh, TikTok, 340,000, Instagram, 2,000, just like in bullet points, my eyes kind of just like glaze over and I don't really know what I'm looking at. But I really like to use this approach of using the icon for the social media platform and then a number under, because this concisely conveys on this platform, I have this many followers. Now, besides your following, you can add any additional statistics depending on your main platform. For example, if you have a website, you might want to use visits or unique visits. For podcasts, you might want to list your average number of listeners per episode. For streams, you might want average viewers per stream. It really depends on what your main platform is. Right here, I have my TikTok stats from, I think, 30 days or so. It includes video views, profile views, and also stuff for interaction as well. So you want to quantify your content for sure, but not too much. Always show what is the most important. Now, in regards to demographics, it may not be as important depending on what they are. I included my demographics because I have a mainly female identifying following, which I've been told is relatively uncommon in the tabletop community. I could probably do without the country demographics and just provide that if people ask them for me. Okay, lastly, you want to make sure that your contact information is there. Your email and, if you have a website or like your main social media site should definitely be bare minimum. If you put clickable links in your PDF, that's useful for your socials, but I typically just include that in the initial email that I send, which I'll get into in a bit. All right, so now let's get into the juicy self, or the juicy stuff, not juicy self. Pitching yourself, starting with email. Now, the first thing to think about is who you want to reach out to. In general, it is a good practice to reach out to publishers that you generally want to work with, or reach out to publishers who are publishing games that you are really genuinely excited about. I believe the more interest you have in a game, the better your content becomes from it. Also, in general, it helps a bit with burnout. Once I started covering games that I just did not like just to make some money, I definitely started to hate making content and had to take frequent breaks when I wasn't posting anything. Yeah, if I were to change anything back then, I would definitely not cover stuff that I wasn't genuinely excited about. But moving on, once you figure out who you want to reach out to, now it's time to figure out how. Now, there are some or like a few content creator programs that publishers have that you can just sign up and apply for. And this is one of the easiest ways to reach out because it usually just requires you filling out objective information like your follower counts based on your socials and which games you're interested in. But for most publishers, you're going to just want to cold call them or cold reach out via email. In order to find a good email, go to the website and really do like a thorough look over through their contact pages and such, because some companies will have a dedicated person or email to contact for media or press matters. But for most of them, you might just have to go through either a contact form or a support email. All right, the pitch. So let's deep dive into the context of the email. So the meat and the potatoes is you want to make sure to include who you are, both your name and your channel's name, what you do, and what you offer. By the way, after I'm done talking about all of this, I will show you an actual email that I sent to kind of give you a real example of how to incorporate all these. All right, so after you talk about you, now you want to talk about why you want to work with the publisher. And this doesn't have to be like as black and white of a statement as I want to partner up with you because what I like to do is to kind of throw in a personal call to one of their games that I connected with. For example, I could say something like, Azul was one of the first hobby games I played, and I've been very fond of it ever since. This shows that there is history with me and the games that this publisher has put out, and it says that I have an interest in their games without me explicitly saying so. So, piggybacking off of that, if you have covered any of their games before, make sure to link it. It is definitely not the deciding factor, not a huge factor, but publishers are definitely more inclined to work with creators who have a history with their games already. And if you haven't covered anything from that publisher, no big deal. What I like to do in this case is to link a piece of work that I am really proud of instead. It's kind of just like showing off your best work. All right, and now we're on to the boring stuff, which is numbers, statistics. You definitely don't have to list all of the followings on your socials, just highlight your main ones. You also want to link any of your social media accounts, but I typically just do that in the signature of my email. And then lastly, you want to be clear what your intention is. Do you want a free review copy, or do you want to do a free review in exchange for a copy of a game, or do you want to discuss, sponsorship opportunities? I think being clear with it initially will definitely help any miscommunications further down the line. Okay, so let's go ahead and show a real email that I sent back in October 2020 to what would be my future employer, Pandasaurus Games. Now, some of this might honestly be a bit cringe to read, I think maybe for me personally, but I think that this is a really good place for me to start given that I had no experience with sending emails like this at the time. Okay, I'm going to be one of those people that just reads off the slide because I'm not sure if y'all can read this. So, first of all, with the subject, I have would love to work with you, kind of sets the tone. They know what the email's about. And we go into it. Hello, Pandasaurus team. And firstly, I did reach out to the support email here because they did not have immediate email at the time. My name is Raina from 1 Minute Board Games. I have been playing board games from your company for several years now and own many copies. I especially love Dinosaur Island. Dinosaur themed games are my favorite. Jurassic Park is my favorite movie, and I truly believe it's the best one out there. So, right here, I introduced myself and my channel name, and then I also established a relationship that I have with the company and the games that they put out already. My TikTok channel has gained over 16,000 followers in about 3 months. That's crazy. When I sent out this email, I only had 16,000 followers. It's just pretty early in my career. Anyway, we focus on 1 minute board game content and provide how to plays, reviews, and recommendations. In the last 28 days, my channel boasts the following statistics: 350,000 video views and 4,700 profile views. So right here, I introduced my channel, what my channel does, and then also hammered out the most important statistics that I wanted to display at that time. I frequently have followers tell me they have bought board games because of my content. Okay, the link to my channel is as follows, and I went ahead and pasted that there and made it a clickable link. Please make it a clickable link from someone who this is like marketing manager Raina talking. It's so much easier for me to click on links than it is to have to copy and paste it into my browser and hit enter. Okay, moving on. I'd love to get the chance to promote some of your games. I've done a few videos on your games already, and I listed 3 different videos that I covered Pandasaurus games for. Looking back to hearing from you soon. And then in my email signature right here, I have a link to my TikTok and Instagram, which were my only 2 social media platforms that I had at the time. So if I were to look at this and sort of revise it a little bit, I think I definitely would have been a bit more clear as to what I wanted from Pandasaurus. When I said I love to get a chance to promote some of your games, that wasn't necessarily clear on if I expected to be paid or if I wanted to do it in exchange for a review copy. So I probably would have tweaked that around a little bit. Okay, so Now, if you want to go to conventions, you may start setting up meetings with publishers. These meetings typically last about 20 minutes and they can be extremely nerve wracking. But, don't worry, just like a regular interview, you really do have to remind yourself that it's as much of an interview for the publisher as it is one for you. In fact, honestly, I believe it's more of an interview for the publisher than it is for you because we really have to convince you that our games are worth your time and your energy and your content. Like content creators are really the backbone of the tabletop world. So the good news is meeting a publisher in real life is kind of like reading your email, but with a bit more flow to it. So once you get your email down, you're basically going to incorporate that into your little spiel. So a little bit of differences between my emails and my pitches in person is when it comes to talking about myself and my content. I really like to talk about or just give a little tidbit about how I got into board games and content creation because I feel like that makes me a bit more of a person and less of like a business thing. Like it makes you more personable. And I just think it's awesome to hear what people's journeys are. Um, Additionally, for your statistics, you're going to want to condense it more. Like just hit them with the one big number. Like, okay, I write for this website, which got 1 million views last month. That's it. And your initial pitch should be about 90 seconds in length, give or take some seconds. My general tip is just to practice, 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 because the more you say it, the more comfortable that you become with it. Whew. Okay. So I feel like I really sped through this whole presentation because now I have come up on the time for questions if anyone has questions. But I think I really just wanted to outline a lot of the basics in my presentation and to just hammer out any specific questions in the Q&A if that's okay. All right, let's see. See here. Trying to see if there's any questions. Okay, so I don't think there's any questions right now. Let's see here.
Hi. No, there's no questions yet. We should we'll just keep on chatting. If people out there in the stream do have questions for Reina, please do ask them. Oh, here we go. We have one. Let's see this. Supine Arcanum asks, I love that. When you were sending cold emails to devs starting out, how long did you wait to hear back until before either moving on or sending a game? That's a great question.
That is a great question, yeah, because I definitely have that experience now from receiving cold emails and seeing people follow up on them. I think I would wait about a week and a half before I followed up on the email, and then if I didn't hear back from them again, then I would, kinda take that as a not right now or not at this moment. I think more than one follow-up can be just a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Same thing with, when we pitch to somebody, you can't keep on keeping on unless they give you some signs that they are interested. They might get back to you once and then not return if they're really busy. Like usually around con season, it's really, really busy
Oh,
and really
yeah.
difficult for them to get back to you. There's 6 billion things, and it's usually a small company. Like even Pandasaurus is like really just a couple of people doing the bulk of all the work, right? And then they have
Mhm.
some people doing some of the work. But if you're looking for a decision making kind of an authority there, it's really just two people who are going to make the majority of the decisions, right? So
Mhm.
that's a great question. Same thing with pitching to a publisher for a prospective game. We don't keep on harping on them. We
Mhm.
just move on, right?
Yeah, I think if they were definitely interested, they would follow up on it is, one of the things that I've learned, so
So I have a question for you, Raina. Why TikTok?
Um, yeah, that's a great question, and I think at the time it was genuinely just because it was a platform that I used a lot personally, and I didn't see any board game content on TikTok, and so, I thought, "Hey, why don't I just start talking about board games on this platform that I like to use?" And at the time, I was one of the first people to do it, so I think that really helped me with the momentum and the traction that my channel ended up gaining.
Yeah, so the idea of being one of the first in a new channel or a new media style, I think is definitely hard, right?
Mhm.
But also
Yeah.
then you're gonna start building and building and building. Foster the Meeple gives you a virtual hug. There you go. Virtual hug. So, if there are more questions out there in the stream, please do put them into the chat. We will bring it up. Until then, we'll keep on talking amongst ourselves. But I'm watching that stream, making sure that if you have questions, we're getting them answered by Reina. So, Reina, what are some things that make content when you see it stand out and say, "I'm a follow that content creator," or "Hey, even more importantly, I'm going to reach out to them as Pandasaurus
Mhm.
and perhaps contract them for something."
I feel like I watch a lot of content across a bunch of different realms, like, fashion, makeup, lifestyle, and to me, it's very important that somebody's personality shows through their content. So I think it's definitely less about the numbers and more about the person, like to see how they interact with their community, to see, if they're doing anything different with their content or if they seem like they're really passionate and involved with it. I think that is definitely super important to me because I believe that if you really like the content creator, you will watch anything that they put out just because you like them as a person, you identify with them.
Okay. Now, on that note, can we talk a little bit about parasocial relationships with content creators and streamers and things like that? Is that a problem? Is it difficult? Has it ever got out of hand? How do you deal with that kind of stuff?
It's definitely it's really hard because you want to foster a community and sometimes you see the same people comment on your stuff throughout the years that you're creating content. And so it's easy for, on both sides to feel like you know the other person, but you actually don't. And so there have been instances I haven't really dealt with this a lot, but there have been instances where like people would like send me messages and ask me for like very specific recommendations and then like get a little bit upset when I don't reply and they say stuff like, "Oh, I've seen you post stuff on TikTok. Why can't you reply to my message?" sort of thing. And I think it's just all about like setting boundaries with people and yeah, but it's definitely a possibility. I haven't dealt with it myself, but it's something to be wary of for sure.
Yeah, for those of you out there who don't understand or know what parasocial relationships are, they are these sort of social relationships that people who are personalities, like on the internet, sometimes fall into developing with their audience in a way that kind of crosses some boundaries, but maybe they don't know that's happening, or maybe the
Mhm,
other person doesn't even know that's happening. Maybe nobody knows it's happening, but all of a sudden you're acting like you're real friends in real life, and
mhm,
you might not actually be that. Somebody being friendly to you doesn't mean they're necessarily your friend. And so we
mhm,
get these parasocial relationships in content creation where, and streaming especially, where just because you're always on my stream doesn't make you, doesn't make me beholden to you. Or, even worse, just because you monetarily support my stream also doesn't make me beholden to you. And I think you're
mhm,
right, Raina, that making some clear boundaries about your relationships, about services, about all these things is really important in this day and age because if you start breaking them, then how far are you gonna go,
mhm.
right?
You definitely don't want to test those limits.
No, because it can get really dangerous out there, right?
Hmm.
So, another question from my favorite name on the stream, Supine Arcanum, asks, "What do you think are important vectors to remember when trying to start getting your initial audience? How do you work to get it in front of people you think it'll hit with?" Good question.
That is a good question. And I think once you're just starting out, if you haven't figured that out yet, the answer is not an easy one. And it's just to post different content and see what sticks with your audience. When I started posting my TikTok content, I would cover a bunch of different things from, like strategy games to party games. I would do recommendations. I would do like little vlogs. I would do like little TikTok dances and stuff. And then as I, had like a big sample range, essentially, I was able to see a clear these videos perform better than these videos. And that was how I was able to learn what my audience wanted from me.
Oh, like metrics.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So, can you talk a little bit about metrics? Like, how are you using them now? How did you use them then? What metrics are you specifically looking for?
So, as a publisher, what I look for is engagement. I don't really care about just like the outright subscriber numbers or following numbers or view numbers because who it's more meaningful if you have viewers or people in your community who are engaging with your content because that definitely takes it a step further. It shows that they trust this person, they like their opinion, they want to engage with anything that they post. So I look for stuff like comments and shares and just things that are more intricate than just the big picture numbers. And then similarly, when I would pitch myself to publishers, I would also use engagement related metrics like comments, video shares, stuff like that.
Right. Oh, that's a good point. Like, so people commenting is pretty obvious that they're engaged with you, but
Hmm.
also shares. That's a great point. That it's not. I'm not just looking at it doing nothing with it. I'm like re-evangelizing if I'm
Hmm.
sharing, right? And I think that's really how virality, works. Obviously, is
Hmm.
when people share things that you put out, and then other people share that, and so forth and so on, and all the direct link backs and all those types of things. I think those are really, really, really important to have. So those metrics are really what you're looking for when you're looking at other content creators coming in to do work with you as Pandasaurus. Um, did you ever have a time like way earlier in your career when you cared about some other metric and you learned like that wasn't it?
When I was a content creator, I definitely really cared about my following count at first because that was the front facing number and the number that a lot of people asked me for at first. And I do feel like there are a lot of companies out there who just look at like the front facing numbers like following count and view count and subscriber count. It's actually really interesting. There's this idea of micro influencers. And that's been a term in like other industries for a while, like the beauty industry, the video game industry. And the idea of micro influencers is that there are people who have a less following count, but a way higher engagement rate. Because unfortunately, just the way that it works is the more followers one gets, their engagement rate just goes down. And sometimes that engagement that you get from the micro influencers is way more meaningful and you get a bigger or a better return on investment on it than someone from like a bigger following and bigger numbers and stuff like that.
Right, that makes sense too, because that bigger follower, it's just a drop in the ocean, that one piece of content. But when you're getting those micro influencers, those people have like rabid fan bases where
Mhm.
their followers are like, I'm into that person for this reason. And I think board games can definitely be like that because most people, when they're asked, which reviewer should I follow? Nobody says follow this one. They always say find one whose games you align with, like whose
Mhm.
likes you align with in terms of what do they like, what do they see in a game, what do you see in a game? If that aligns, that's a person you should follow. And that's where you get that real kind of fervent following where it's like, oh, everything that Raina likes, I like too. So whatever she recommends, I'll probably at least give a serious consideration to, if not
Mhm.
just buy it outright.
Yeah.
I think that's where that micro influencing can be really, really powerful because conversions are a thing, and we really can't measure that with metrics. There's no metrics that
Mhm.
said it did convert unless we have something on like an Amazon type of homepage I can link back. But yeah, the conversion of did my TikTok make anybody buy that particular game is this sort of not it's an entity that we would love to know. It's a number we would love to know, but we can't track that back often unless people re-engage and say, "Oh, I love that thing that you did on that, made me buy it." Now we know.
Mhm.
And that's where we can kind of look towards commenting like that to prospective publishers who we're dealing with from the content creation side. It's like, hey, here's some not testimonials, like your content is great, but here's how my testimonial has made sales for other people. That
Mhm.
could be useful. Another question, we have a question from Like Yourself. Very nice name. As a dev, what content should I put out to attract content creators without having to become a content creator? That's awesome. That's a really good question. There's a couple more follow-up questions. So here we go. Um, Example, I don't mind recording and sharing their TTPRG playtests, so tabletop role-playing game playtests, but do they have to get those playtests to like a Dimension 20 level of production? Like this is not everybody can be Dimension 20, Critical Role, whatever actual play level of quality you're talking about. What do you think? What kind of content do people need to give content creators in order for them to do even more better work? That's I think the question.
That's such an interesting question. I think that the more like the more experience that a content creator has, honestly, the less that we need to tell if a game is going to be a good fit for us and our audience. For example, I've done a lot of work on Kickstarter campaigns, and since they're still in development and they need to flesh out their marketing budget early in advance, a lot of the times all they really give me is a rundown of the game and like a rules document of the game that's not completed with like some half completed art assets. But I think that give as long as they do a good job at explaining to me, what the full vision is of the game, I'm well tuned enough with, my knowledge of games and my knowledge of my audience to decide for myself whether or not I think it's going to be a good fit. Generally speaking, there is this awesome Facebook group. I think it's called Board Game Reviewers and Media.
Mhm.
And there are people who post in there, devs like yourself, who say, hey, I have this game, post like a picture of it. It's not to be completed. This is like the info on it. And I'm looking for anyone who'd be interested in covering it. And I've never seen someone post that without getting at least some interaction on it. So there's definitely going to be interest out there.
So comments. This is a really great site. Fireside Games is they're my friends, of course, Justin and Anne Marie. And they did games like Castle Panic and whatnot. But they have a really good press side of things where they create press packs, which contain like everything that the media might need without having to contact Justin and Anne Marie directly. It's like you download this, you'll have like a quick start plays, you'll have key art, you'll have maybe sometimes a demo of the rules. You'll have all these things. They've done so much work at Fireside Games to make their games approachable and their rules accessible that I think, to me, whether you like their games or not, this is a model to really look at and follow in terms of a press kit where anybody who wants to talk about it has all the information that they need at their fingertips to really do good work. Here's another question. Bam. Supine Arcanum again says, let's say you know what content you want to make, like reviews or let's play or whatever, but you feel like it's not getting in front of the audience you're looking for. How do you correct that?
That is such a difficult question, and I feel like it's such a huge reality for a majority of the content creation community. And I feel like the answer is kind of rough because if that's when you kind of have to look at why are you doing what you're doing? Is because you like what you're doing, or is it because you kind of want to keep growing from there? Because that's what I had to face a lot in my channel. I discovered that my audience likes a lot of like party games and it's really light games, but I really like playing heavy strategy games and I would like to, be able to cover those more, but then just the statistics would just tank immediately. But sorry, I'm like going off on a tangent.
No, no, no.
You feel like you're not getting it in front of the right audience. How do
Yeah,
you
so
combat
is
that?
there a way to, like, hack the algorithms? And I think that's this so there was a time when, like, hashtag flooding was a thing, and it's then it became not a thing because the algorithm is not working that way anymore. So there's a lot of work that influencers are doing in terms of, like, I guess it's like SEO 2.0 almost, where they're, like, learning how to engage with the algorithm so that their content gets in front of the people who actually want to see it.
Which is so frustrating
It
because
is.
you can put out the best content ever, but if the algorithm doesn't pick it up, then it's no one's ever going to see it.
So sad, so very
And so
sad.
it causes a lot of creators to just go into like a deep dive of like what you were saying, SEO 2.0. And it's a lot of work to figure out how to trigger certain parts of the algorithm. And sometimes it can be very discouraging because you have to jump through all these hoops just to get more people to see your video.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In the old days, it used to be build it and they will come, but not anymore.
Mm,
There's so much content out there, right? And there's
mhm,
so many people like we actually like there's people like I actually don't know personally in content creation who have like lots and lots and like hundreds of thousands of followers. And it's like, really? That is so cool that I don't know this person. It's not that I
mhm,
should know everybody, but like I've been in the industry for like over a decade and a half. And I know a lot of like the key players in content creation, but there's some up and comers who are using different media channels, who have different, might have come into games from a different side, and they're doing awesome. And so
mhm,
it's like those are people who we can learn from. Like, don't ostracize those people just because they're not like within your nerd circle.
mhm,
They are still doing the job of getting the content out there. And a lot of them, Raina, you're right. They started out with maybe party games or lighter games, and they're not doing the heavy games. But here's the thing: you're probably gonna get more people who play those games because they're more
mhm.
approachable,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's an okay thing, right? I mean, maybe you have to make 2-minute board games for the heavier games, right? Or 3 for, like, PAX Premier, just for that game, or for
I know I gotta do
TI4.
some rebranding.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not something that is easy either, is that whole rebrand, or you just have an offshoot, and that'd be
Mhm.
okay too. Hey, Goblin Mixtape, that's a great name too. I love it. You guys are great at names. What would you say is the most difficult part of being a content creator? Reina.
Ooh, definitely dealing with burnout, whether that's, taking steps to prevent it or dealing with it once it happens. I used to be so proud of saying things like, no, I know myself, I know my boundaries. So I'm good at preventing burnout because I just take a step back whenever I feel like it. And then it hit me, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing ever. But I think the reason why it's really hard to prevent burnout is because it really requires you to have some difficult conversations with yourself as to, what's important to you, what are you trying to accomplish, and then, where does content creation rank via all your other priorities in your life, because every other person has so many other things going on in their life,
Mhm.
and it's, hopefully not going to be at the very very top. And so if you don't treat it like it's the most important thing in your life in the beginning, and you sort of shift it in there accordingly, and you just adjust your boundaries and your priorities, it's easy to prevent burnout. I was going on a tangent there.
No, 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 you're good.
No, definitely that though. Yeah.
Yeah, burnout's the real deal, especially over the last 2.5, 3 years
Oh yeah.
where content creation has been like, I'm gonna get into content creation. And then it's like you're taking all these things on and the world reopens and you have other responsibilities now, but you
Mhm.
made commitments and
And then like your voice as a content creator is so important too. So everyone always tells me like, consistency is so important because the longer that you're around, the more people that could use your voice and this and that. And so just a lot of people have been giving me advice as to how to prevent burnout so I could stay creating content for as long as I can.
mhm. Now I'm somebody who doesn't love the term content creator, but I get it. It's so funny. Such a funny term. For me, because I do a podcast and then a video stream, That's like an hour-long series, an hour-long show about design in the industry, and then a podcast, Ludology, which has been around for many, many, many years. Both of those shows have been around for many, many years. Maple Syrup is, I don't know, like 7th season. I have no clue. And we're on to like almost the 300th episode of Ludology, which is every 2 weeks. So that's a lot of years. You know, I think one of the things that keeps us sane is we chose formats that are pretty low key. So our live stream with Maple Syrup is unedited, live off the cuff. We don't do a whole lot of prep. We just kind of go off the cuff.
Mhm.
And we, as the interviewers, know the industry well enough that we can just kind of roll with whatever the person wants to talk about, which is great. Ludology is a little more formal, and we have, an agenda and questions, but we have more people than just Reina. Like, we have 3 hosts for Ludology, and we take, different responsibilities as we are going through that. So part of it is, spreading the jobs out amongst a bunch of people may be easier than being a solo content creator, right?
Mhm.
Now, are you doing most of your content just by yourself now?
Yes, so I do have for those of you who aren't familiar, I have a partner, Phil, who I brought on to do some content with me. But then he got a full-time job, so he couldn't do it with me anymore. Yeah, and I also, to be completely honest, I was, like, micromanaging a lot of it anyway. I have, like, issues with control, so it didn't really work out anyway, but, yeah, it's just me, and honestly, I love that how you were saying that your content is, like, just, like, for lack of a better word, just very chill.
Mhm.
Mine is very very calculated, like I write out a script and then I record very certain shots and I have to edit everything, do it in post,
Well,
and so
you
it's
also
very
have this
involved.
self-imposed time limit. That's your
I do,
fault.
yeah, 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 that's important for sure. I did have, constraints that I have to work with, and so sometimes it becomes like, "Oh, I really don't wanna spend, an hour and a half editing on my phone today," and so then I don't put anything out, so it gets tough.
Right, and that's the thing a lot of people don't understand is that for X minute of content, it can honestly take, like, 10 to 60 to 100 times the time to, like,
Mhm,
generate that 1 minute of content, right?
mhm.
Which is why I say, for me, 60 minutes is 60 minutes, for Maple Syrup, and for, Ludology, a minute is probably about 3 minutes of time, of extra time
Mhm.
afterwards, with editing and then listening and show notes and things like that, unless I get real lazy and don't do the show notes. But people seem to like them, so I have to do them. But I don't do show notes for Maple Syrup. Maple Syrup is very simple, very easy. It's just live to Facebook and YouTube. So that's all we ever really wanted it to be. Like, we didn't want it to go further than that. If it does, wonderful. If it doesn't, also don't care, right?
Mhm.
Whereas I think sometimes when you're expecting to monetize, when you're expecting to be like ad revenue and all those types of things, there's a little more effort that needs to be put into actually making that happen, right?
Yeah, and that's what's tough too, because if you want to monetize your content, if you wanna start doing it for a job, it's inevitable you're going to lose some joy in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Once something becomes a job, it might not be as fun anymore, right? Because it's
Mhm.
actually a business.
Yeah.
So please let us know if you have any more questions for Reina. We're coming up to the 8 o'clock time here, 5 o'clock Pacific, and we will have,
Dinner.
10 more minutes. Yeah, then we're gonna go eat dinner or something. I might
Mhm.
just, I don't know, go work on a game. But
Right.
if you have any more questions, please let us know. And while we're waiting for more questions, I'm just gonna tell you about our last and final guest. We're trying to confirm Jian Shim to come in. Jian is a RPG designer who is notable for the amount of ephemera that she puts into her games, and just really interesting keepsake games that are cozy and comfortable and interesting, uh, but also can be, really insightful and personable. So there's that, and I'm still trying to reschedule Carrie Rundle McIver, about manufacturing and designing with manufacturing in mind, and or eco-conscious design. So that may still come. We'll see. All right, we have another question. Supine Arcanum asks, how do you feel about co-creator plugs, like promoting a small channel or creators you love in the same space that you want to get more eyes on?
Oh my goodness, I love that, and I love that I see more creators nowadays doing that. I think it's a great way because, there are people who want to watch more content, but they really just don't know where to start. Um, like we were saying earlier, there's so many different content creators out there. And so like I've there's a creator that I really love to watch and they make a personal recommendation. That's a good chance of saying, "Hey, I like watching your stuff. If you recommend this person, there's a good chance I'll like watching their stuff too." And so we'll go ahead and transfer over, and then the new creator that you recommend might cover games that you don't normally cover, and so you're really just like covering wider ground in terms of like games that are being shown to people, which is super awesome.
Yeah, so it could be a stylistic similarity, but the content's actually maybe different, or it could be
Mhm.
content similarity, but the style's different, right? There's many vectors that make certain content enjoyable. If I really want to find out about heavy games, is there somebody that is maybe as engaging and as passionate and as quick as Reina that does heavier games? Let's go find that
Mhm.
person, right? So there's all sorts of content creators, and I think the idea of cross pollination and there's all sorts of neat ways to do that on services like TikTok and whatnot, where you can stitch and you do reaction videos to other people's things. That then again work with that whole virality type of algorithmic. I see what you're doing and you see what I'm doing, and everybody likes it and they share it and blah 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 blah. Right?
Mhm.
Cool.
Exactly.
Oh, this is Ruel saying, not a question, just a shout out to you both. Thanks, Sen and Reina, for sharing your insights. Ruel Gaviola is also another content creator who is definitely worth watching. Great to have you on the stream as well, Ruel. So, you know what? Is there any last minute thoughts that you have there, Reina? We've got about 8 minutes left.
Any last minute thoughts?
Yeah, like
Um,
advice.
I think when it comes to like in-person meetings, really just try to be yourself. I think it's relatively low stakes for what it is and for what you might build it up to be in your head. But I think it's just some of the most memorable meetings that I've had have just been people that I've had just good conversation with and just seem like they just really love to do what they do. And we were just, there to talk about board games. It was super cool.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's the same with design, to be honest. Um, I get a lot of not contracts, but a lot of people asking me to do development work or to work with them or to do design work for them because I'm just, I guess, professional. I mean, that's it, right? I be somebody that people want to work with, and it'll just fall into place. There's a lot to be said about slick photography and great sound and technical stuff, but you know, you can do that. It's not super, super hard. What is difficult, or maybe somewhat difficult for some people, is having the confidence to just be yourself when you're out there with people and work together with them in a professional way. I think that's probably one of the biggest things for me as in terms of content creators. It's like you got to hit your deadlines, right? You've just got to. If you have made a commitment to somebody and you're taking payment for something, then you need to hit those deadlines. If you're not, then you don't. Like if you're just doing this for funsies, and you're just starting out, and you're like you have like a cycle of every 2 weeks to put something new out. If you're doing like long form, great. If you miss one, no big deal. But once
Mhm.
you're starting to take payment or whatever, even if it's a gift in kind, now you have like a little more professionalism involved if you want to keep on doing this in a more professional and more professional manner. Oh, good question. Here's another one from Supine Arcanum. Do you have any advice for sending those cold emails as a developer looking for a publisher? So I guess this would be more for me as I'm a designer. But yes, don't send everything all at once. I'm sure Raina has got those kind of emails or seen those kind of emails where somebody says, and here's my full rule set and all the art and everything like that. And honestly, there's a lot of reasons, some of them legal, why you don't want to do that. I'll give you a hint about some legalities. A lot of publishers cannot look at your stuff unless they have asked for it because they may be concurrently designing something similar. They may have something in the can already that looks similar. And if they look at your stuff, now they've opened themselves up to litigation where you can say, oh, I sent that to you on this date, and you released this game like 7 months later. You stole my idea. And so a lot of publishers will not even look at stuff that is not solicited, right? So solicited mean that they have asked you or have agreed that they would look at your stuff. And as you get more and more, feet indoors, you kind of have an open policy. Like there's many publishers who will just take anything from me and at least look at it. Doesn't mean it's going to get signed, but they know that it's something they want to look at. The other thing is that I want to actually, just like Reina said, engender a conversation between myself and that publisher. So if I say, hey, here's my idea. Are you interested in seeing the things that I have? And here's what I have. I have, a video. I have the rule book. I have some key art already, sketched out. And they say, yes, send me those. Now we have a conversation, right? Now we have literally like a two-way street. If I just info dump into that first email, they never have to reply to me and they have all the stuff. And that really isn't engendering that relationship that I really want. Because a lot of times that game may not be the game for them. Like 9 times out of 10, it's not. Well, actually, probably more like 99 times out of 100. It's not the game for that particular company. But if they get to know you as a person, as a professional, they may be more willing to talk to you if you behave professionally, right? And if you engender conversation and engage with them as people instead of just this info dump, that may be a way in as well, right? To be somebody that they look towards for other stuff in the future. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's just a great point in general. So it's all about relationship building in the end.
It really, really is. The tabletop industry is very small and very tight. As big as it may seem from the outside, from the inside, it really isn't. And so, yeah, you want to develop relationships to the point where they aren't parasocial, right? You actually do know these people. You've eaten dinner with them. You've played games with them, right? That's the important part. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So on that note, you know what? I think that's it. We're coming close to the hour. If there's no more questions from anybody else, Reina, any last minute advice? Like any things you want to plug? Any equipment that you think is like a necessity for people to have as content creators? I don't know.
Oh, I think that just like a great thing in general is don't outright buy all of the expensive equipment at first. I think you can definitely make good content with what you have. And like honestly, for my TikToks, I have my iPhone and then I have just like a $12 lapel mic that I bought on Amazon and like an $8 tripod that I bought on Amazon. That's what I make all of my content with. So it was definitely really affordable, but you can make your content high quality with the effort that you put into it.
Yeah. And it also depends on what kind of content you're making. Like if you're doing top-down tabletop and you want to look at moving pieces, that's different than, cameras facing your face. If you want 2 cameras at once, one on the table, one on your face, you're going to need 2 cameras, right? And lighting makes a big difference. A good mic makes a big difference.
Yes.
That's where I would actually put more of the money. Most people are really, really used to looking at camera shots from phones.
And they don't even know it.
Yeah, but the sound quality is something that if it's bad, nobody will watch it, even if it's good video. Because the sound quality of its grading is really not worth watching. And then lighting can improve even a not great camera.
Yeah, and just like the right angles of lighting too, which is what I'm learning is super interesting. Like it's not about buying the best quality lights, but just knowing how to use them can really make a big difference.
Yeah, because like some of the best lights are really just a light with a piece of paper in front of it to diffuse it, right? There's all sorts of ways to do that. There's a bunch of people in tabletop specifically, like Tim Chuan and Ori Kagan, who give out a lot of photography or video rendering advice and things like that. So, they have kits and brushes and all sorts of like technology things that I don't understand because I'm not at that level of content creation. But if you want to be an R, there's other people to look to and follow for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of great communities out there. I think we all just really want to help each other out in the end. So if you're looking for advice or have questions, there's a lot of great resources out there in groups.
Excellent. So on that note, we're going to shut down the stream. It was so nice to have all of you with us. Goblin Mixtape, Supine Arcanum, Like Yourself, and even Royal. It was nice to have you, Royal. Oh, and Foster the Meatball. Forgot about that. So we'll see you all hopefully in a couple weeks with hopefully Gion. I have to get Gion to agree to be here. And then we're good to go. All right. Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Raina. It was awesome having you. Loved
You
having you
too.
come in and talk.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll see y'all
Bye.
later. Bye.